Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Hope you're doing well. I am excited to get on tonight and just do a bit of an odd time live for myself because I've been away. I spent the last 6 days away with family at a place called Green Bay Bible Camp, having an amazing time with my two beautiful daughters and my new wonderful son and my lovely wife. And, you know, we're by the lake. We're enjoying 35 to maybe 37 degree heat. That's Celsius. So we're talking like, you know, we're approaching 100, and it was wonderful. We're by the lakeside. We're having an amazing time. We're eating great food. We're running every day. I got 20,000 steps every single day. I'm working out almost every single day, like doing a 30-minute hit, just crushing it, trying my best to, you know, push my fitness to a new level. So it's been like a fun week. It's been a hard week in a pushing myself in personal ways to sort of, you know, in that capacity. Great memories with the kids. One really special memory with both my girls, holding them, reading to them a favorite book of mine, reading The Magician's Nephew from Chronicles of Narnia. And I just love sharing stuff like that, as you probably do too. You got some music you love, or a good book, or a movie that you really feel, you know, deeply connected to. You love sharing that with some of the people you love. And so that's what that moment was for me. We were there taking a break and took an hour to just sit back and read with those girls. And then another special moment with my son Gregory. We were playing this sort of sports day event where we run around from station to station doing these ridiculous tasks that make you laugh, and you're getting filthy, like pudding on you and paint on you, and you know, it was ridiculous. You're filthy by the end of it, and that's part of the fun. And afterwards, we all, 300 people run down to the lake and jump in at like 9 p.m. at night, sun setting in this beautiful place on this Okanagan lake, and the clouds in the sky. It's just beauty, beauty, beauty. And you're jumping in this cold water with your family and friends. And I was holding Gregory, and we just took a dip. And honestly, it's the best memory of our relationship thus far. Just the laugh I had with him and the time we shared in that moment. So it was a very special event and week away, but as a result, not a ton of content this week that was outside of what I already planned. So I don't know if it was clear as you watched the videos this week on the channel, but I'd created content except for yesterday. I created one video for every day, but it was all pre-prepared because I had that trip planned. And so then I come home, and I'm a day late on hearing about this here, but man, is there some excitement stuff. You know, you guys have seen about it. You guys have seen the reveals on these reward cards. You've seen, actually, let's pop over here. The People's Guild. Banter nips. Some amazing cards shared, I guess, in the last 24 hours. And my hope is that we can have a fun chat over what some of these look like and how they'll fit into the meta, maybe how they'll redefine the meta. So that's a bit of, for sure, that's a piece I want to touch here today. I want to go live for an hour, but then I'm going to log off at 9 and spend some time with the wife tonight. But if you have other topics you want to talk about, I'm happy to get into that too. I think probably 20 to 30 minutes talking about these reward cards though, because I really, really want to look at them. I'm excited to see them. I haven't seen them yet myself. I've seen them visually. I set aside the artwork because I want to have access to it. I scrolled X to see what people had, and I did have a reach out from Splinterlands asking if I want to share one, which of course I do. So if anyone from the team is watching this, please, I would love to. But we'll see. We'll one thing at a time. Eli, good to see you. Paul, good to see you. Ank, smash the like. Appreciate that, brother. People's Guild, did I hear my name? Yes. Jangles, appreciate you, brother. First 12 live here for me, says Jangles. Howdy, everyone. Good to see you, pal. Thanks for popping by. I think this is public knowledge, but I'm a huge fan of the People's Guild. This is, in my opinion, honestly, like bigger than, it's more important than my channel. It's more important than, you know, Bulldog with like 20,000 followers or whatever he's got. And I say that because of the content that's constantly there. It's not as regular as like an Aftersound or a Dwayne or a, you know, a Bulldog or you know, there's so many great content creators. There really are. I like watching it all. Bronze Dragon's leveling up over there. I love Gathering, you know it. But the People's Guild content is so high caliber. The conversations you guys start over there and lead over there, and the way you guys handle this, the conversation, you drive the conversation forward with people who I assume you have no real world connection to, and yet you seem so personally connected to it. So love you guys, love what you do, Jangles. Keep it up, buddy. And everybody should be subscribed to them. I feel when I start to see channels like People's Guild get 5,000 subs, and Bronze Dragon and Gathering too, who are covering in such a great way but aren't getting the subscriptions or that I would expect, and that to me is more of an indicator almost of where we're at than a bigger conversation about price point on cards, or the tone within Discord, or the number of active accounts that are signing up or that are buying spell books. All that's great. And we should look at that to understand the fuller picture of where Splinterlands is at. But as I look at content creators that I personally believe, at least subjectively, are creating amazing content, and I actually want to say objectively creating awesome content. I don't think it's a matter of opinion. I think it's a fact that it's quality content, and yet it's just not being appreciated or supported in the way that one day it will if they keep on it. And so I feel that way about People's Guild, as well as some of those other names and more too that I didn't list. But yeah, guys, let's talk about some reward cards, and I'd love to see what you guys are thinking. Appreciate you, Gangles. Yeah, and Paul, thanks for popping by, buddy. Good to see you all. Okay, so I'm going to share what I've seen. I created a quick video talking about the new abilities and debilitations that I want to release tonight. So I won't rehash that now for you, but if you want to know my thoughts on these debilitations as well as the new abilities, then check that out for midnight tonight. I love this new desktop image though. I'm going to throw that down. But with respect to the 11 new cards that I've personally, no, I think it's 12. I think it's 12. So there's 9 right here that Dahota shared, or that he collected, let's say, and then shared in Discord. And then there's 2 from Jangles over here, Surly Drunk, which I think was, yeah, Bronze Dragon revealed that one. I don't know who shared all these, but let's look at them one at a time, and let's talk about what we see. If you guys know about others besides these 11, and then there's a new one down here too, right there. Galatius, I'm going to call that. So that's 12. If there are more than that, I would love to see them. Send them to me via Discord or something. But let's start here with Drybone Megalodon. Actually, back up. The artwork generally, you have to admit, this is big level up. Huge. Like, it's not exactly a, like a gigantic leap forward from maybe some of the more recent Rebellion cards, which do also look very clean, but these are clearly, like, as we look back at Alpha, it's a totally different game. Like, Alpha now maybe they have an adorable, quaint feel, and that's maybe the play and the angle. I heard that there's Alpha skins that were never released that somebody found. I think I was on an interview again with the People's Guild, chatting with Gator, and so if there's Alpha skins, and Gator seemed to imply that the image quality just wasn't, or let's say the card the character design isn't what would currently be considered up to snuff. That was the implication I heard when I heard him talking about it. But look at this, like Goblin Shaman, this thing looks silly compared to modern art. Minotaur Warrior, and it's, I don't mean to be rude, it's just not as good as what currently is out there. The Haunted Spire looks, almost silly, but it's its own play. It's its own quaint, cute, era. And that's going to happen in every collectible card game. There will be a time in the future, if Splinterlands survives long enough, that these new reward card styles are going to be outdated. But this looks sick. So Drybone Megalodon. Fire Team, 8 mana, 4 melee, 4 speed, 10 hit points, 4 armor. So it looks like a big tank. Now it doesn't have any sort of, like, let's say, obvious self-sustain. There's no shield, There's no void. There's no void armor. But you get the flank, which means... Now, hang on a second. I'm forgetting. I believe this means... hang on a second. Is this the one? I got to look that up now. I think that's the one where you can fire from the second... You can create... You can choose a monster to fire from the second spot, which is flank. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So at the beginning of the battle, if the unit is in the first position, the unit in the second position gains reach. Okay, so that's not necessarily particularly helpful for the dry bone megalodon. I like flank, I really do, and we've seen that be a very powerful card because it introduces the opportunity to put certain amazing, what might have been previously considered main tanks in that second spot, and that can be super powerful. But again, with no sort of deep resiliencies, yes, he has 10 hit points and 4 armor, which is not nothing, and he's got a reasonable speed, and the retaliate is serious, and thorns is, you know, all that's great, but 10 hit points with no void can be deleted really rapidly nowadays with, you know, 2 magic monsters. You know, if you look, there's at least a few magic monsters that'll do 5. And there's also buffs that you can bring, and armor piercing would allow you to do this really easily too. He doesn't have shield, so you could do melee through this thing, you could do archery through this thing. So I feel like 2-3 hits and this thing dies. It doesn't even have enrage, so the demon shark, which has enrage, becomes more evasive because of the speed. So this dry bone megalodon, which I actually like it. It's only 8 mana, so I want to view it within the lens of 8 mana. I'm gonna say this is not, you know, we'll see as we look at the other 11 cards, but it feels strong. It doesn't feel crazy. I love retaliate. It's such a powerful thing, but again, this is like demon shark but a little bit dialed back. Yes, the flank is a big deal, and you can start putting some crazy cards in the second spot on the fire team, which is a big deal. But that would be a broader conversation that we would almost need to spend 5-10 minutes just going deep dive on the fire team generally, or the neutral team generally, or for that matter the dragon team generally, because this card could be played in conjunction with dragon. And as you start to look at all the main tanks that prefer that first spot, but maybe could slip into the second due to dry bone coming in the first spot, you know, that is pretty interesting. And that's maybe where the bread and butter or something like this would come from. But I think it's a little vulnerable. I think it's a little weak. I think it's not going to do a crazy amount of damage. Yes, the thorns. Yes, the retaliate. Yes, 4 damage is interesting. But again, I think it's going to die pretty quick. So I don't love it. Let's keep going. And if you guys have comments on them as you're going, just make sure you leave the name Drybone Megalodon or Blackmore Jinx so I can connect the dots with what your thought is. Blackmore Jinx, we're on the Earth Splinter, and we're talking archery or range with the 3 speed and the 3 hit points. Now this is interesting. The 1 mana legendary is very interesting. There is a couple cards like that, of course, you know, with the Fiends of the 0, but then there's also there's a magic monster on the Death Splinter that's 1 mana. I think that's a Dice or Untamed. I wonder how can I let's go let's search 1 mana. Boom. I love Peak Monsters, man. Peak Monsters is the you need to check this out. Okay, so you know, Scrapper is these cards, the Scrapper, the Carrion, the Hardy Stonefish, the Radiated Orcher, and the Mycelic Morphoid are interesting as meat shields, and we know that, and they can be interesting when melee from any position is possible. And of course they have their little sort of buff, Void, Flight. What do you do again? Oh, you don't get one, but he has the armor, and this guy is Shatter, which I like, but they're really only helpful in those contexts where melee from any position. Chaos Agent can be that main tank, assuming it's little leagues, or maybe if it's equalizer so everybody gets the same hit points. Albatross, Great Old Card, Flame Monkey. These 1 mana cards can be quite powerful, but we do not typically see legendary 1 mana cards. Recently, this dice, like I said, Lensmaster, 2-Gun Pete, Theorised Nightshade, Aganju, and Epona. Epona is one of the most expensive cards in the game. Now, look at this skill set though: strength and divine shield, immunity, repair. It's like, it's such a good little card. And that's the one I see get played the most out of these ones. Mighty Dricken I almost never see. That's a super old one. Oh, that's a promo from the Untamed series. Wow. And then Shinlo, which is a card that's really old. I think it's a beta or alpha maybe. But so the one mana card can be very powerful. And archery is interesting. There's also a 1 mana archer from the green team that is a bloodlusting gladiator. So I get interested in this from a synergistic standpoint. With the green team, we know that you have that one archer that allows the archers to fire from the first position, gives them all close range. I forget his name right now. And then we also know that if you're playing in the wild, there's the Prince Rin, who allows them to have a 1 damage buff as well as speed buff and a heart hit point buff. So Blackmoor Jinx really seems to fit into the green Splinter in a lot of ways. I like this card for a lot of reasons better than I like Black Drybone Megalodon. The 1 mana fits in so easily. 2 damage is very significant for 1 mana. The idea that I don't always love Snipe as an ability, but again, the damage output and the stat base for the 1 is worth it. You would put this in so many times just because you have that 1 mana. And then again, it works with the green team because of the summoners that already exist there, as well as sort of the tactical approaches that exist there. Archery is a big play within the green Splinter. And if you're playing in the wild, Prince Rin, the Spirit of the Forest, Blackmoor Jinx, that gladiator with the 1 mana, right there is a team of 3 archers for I think it's 9 mana, and then you're gonna put, I don't know, failed summoner. You're gonna put, it doesn't matter. Like you're with 1 mana archers that give 2, you've got so much room to breathe in your build. So I do like it. I like this card a lot more than I like Drybone Megalodon, and they're totally different cards. But I see a lot more use case for something like that than probably something like that. I'm gonna check the chat quickly, and I'm gonna try and keep moving because we are moving a bit slower than I thought I would. How about that 4 mana taunt? Yeah, I saw that 4 mana taunt. We'll get there. People's Guild. Hey, now we're every week, not this week and next week though. Yeah, keep it up. Once a week is great. That's plenty of content. But you're not the Aftersound of this space, which is Aftersound does like 4 videos a day or something. Buddy goes deep. Okay. Artwork is fire, says Hank. Absolutely it is. People's Guild, the artwork is so rad, uniquely Praetorian. Absolutely. Paul says, how did you not get any card reveals? Actually, Paul, I was away for the week and I didn't specifically ask for one until today when on X I gotta reach out. I got a DM. I got a DM from the boys. Hey, let me know if you'd like to share any alpha for the upcoming rewards. That came in at 4:20 today, and half an hour later I said, yes, please. I was being on vacation, but I'm back now. Do I need to fill out a form? So fingers crossed I will be able to share something with you guys. But I was away, so I didn't previously ask. Bananas, yeah, the new cards look so much better, except for some of the cute cuddly summoners. Yeah, Bananas, you made that comment about Tofu. We talked about that a little bit. Flank gives reach, yeah. I love the idea of a card like that Drybone that we just showed, fighting from the second spot. Because it lacks those resistances, it doesn't have the shield or the void. If it could fire from the second position itself, I would love it a lot better. Okay. Rodolfo, good to see you. Nice haircut, 12. Thanks, man. Yeah, I switched it up. I got more of like a mullet vibe. It's like quite long in the back now, and I actually want to tighten it up a little bit in the front. It's starting to go a little crazy. But I like the tight sides and the longer other back and front. Okay, let's keep going. So Warbone Chieftain. Again, with the Earth Splinter, you got 7 mana this time. 7 mana is a fine amount to play for what might be a main tank, and I think this could be a main tank. You got the 4 melee, which is not crazy anymore. You see some 7 manas, but with Force Field, maybe 4 is better. Let's keep going. 3 speed is not fast, but it's not slow. I used to think 3 speed was fast. Now I do consider it in the window of still slow. 8 hit points on the light side for what we might consider a main tank, but phase and shield, very significant. Now the phase in conjunction with the 3 speed might be inadequate, but again, we can bring blinds, we can bring more swiftnesses, we can bring slows, etc. You can apply, there might be scenarios where you could apply a flight. You could, right? Because you could bring Bulldog's character, Summoner, and then drop a flight on Buddy, and now you got maybe a real evasive opportunity. And so there's ways that you can make this phase way more powerful. And so I actually really like a card like this where the mana cap is in a space where you're not going to break your team in a mana cap perspective, and yet you get a lot of resiliences that can be backed up, not just with speed, flight, dodge, which would potentially be possible in different contexts, blind. That's 4 ways that maybe you could make this even better. But also, the shield can be made even better if you add more hit points or armor. And so these abilities with this sort of stat range can really be augmented to be, greatly exaggerated in its impact and influence. So I like this card more than I like either of the first two, not because Blackmark Jinx is bad, but because it's not going to be a main card. It's got to be like a support card. I like this card a lot, but so far Warborn Chieftain is more of like, you could play this maybe by itself, and that might be okay. I don't think the same is true with Drybone Megalodon. I do believe, for instance, if you had red versus blue and you tried Drybone Megalodon and I tried Demon Shark, I'm winning that because of Enrage, because of, it's the same card but better. And so I like Warborn Chieftain significantly, with the stun too, by the way, which I didn't even mention, the Demoralize I didn't mention, the Dispel I didn't mention. So this is a very powerful card in my opinion. I like this one, and it's legendary. It's not crazy. Maybe it is a little crazy. We'll see, but it's a great card in my opinion. Thus far, the best I've looked at. Let's keep going. Kazi Conjurer, 2 mana. I haven't looked at any of these yet, by the way. So if I'm missing some piece that you feel jumps out at you, I'd love to see it in the comments. And even if I'm saying something you think strikes home that you hadn't thought about, please also let me know in the comments, because I guess I'm trying to get my head around these. I haven't prepared thoughts on these. I'm trying to get my head around them. So Kazi Conjurer, I love this. I love how the fire keeps coming back to the Phoenix. We have the Elemental Phoenix. We have that huge taunt monster. I forget his name, but he has the Summoner. Yasik has a Elemental Phoenix as a pet. And then we have Kazi Conjurer, who apparently has the same deal. Although it looks like it's burning him a little. I wonder if that's intentional. He looks like he's wincing in pain. Like he can't really handle it. What's this a new ability about? Do we know that? I don't know. Oh, is that the hang on a second. Is that the... Yes, it's the Incendiary. Okay. So Kazi Conjurer has piercing with 6 damage and 5 speed for 2 mana. It's all kind of just sinking in this very moment. 6 damage for 2 mana and 5 speed, by the way, and 5 hit points. So Incendiary means he's going to be on fire, I believe. We could read the notes again, but I think he's on fire at the start of the game. He's going to burn himself to damage at the end of each round. And then he has a 33% chance to damage the neighboring monsters. But I would say for 2 mana, especially depending on whether or not fire cuts to the core, because one of the questions is, does the Incendiary hurt the hit points, or does it hit the armor? Because, fire could damage your armor first. So from a lore perspective, that matters to me. I don't know what they'll do there. If it is directly to the hit points, that's worse than if it will hit your 1 armor first. But clearly, this amount of damage is very substantial for that mana. And you'll have to think through what you would do with that. And then, does shield counteract Incendiary? does immunity? Probably immunity does. So what if you put Kazi Conjurer in the 6th spot to drop in this crazy archery 6 bomb, and then right beside it you put a shield monster in the 5th spot with or an immunity monster for that matter? I assume it cannot be set on fire by incendiary, and therefore there shouldn't be any chance that your incendiary passes on. Do you see what I mean? Because the 5th monster is the only neighboring monster. I think the first shouldn't be neighboring. It's at the front of the line. And so I would think there's ways to play with those debilitations that will allow you to creatively avoid some of the debilitation itself. I think anyways. And this card looks great. I mean, the only question is, am I right about some of those thoughts on this, and how do we play around it? But it's an amazing card. I'm going to throw up the Arachne Weaver, and I'm just going to take a time to check in with the chat, see what you guys are saying. What the WTF, 2 mana is too low for that one. Leandro says, I think a lot of people were getting spicy in the Discord talking about some of these cards. Again, debilitation. And how does that work with shield? How does it work with immunity? How does it work with armor? How does it work? How often does it spread? How, does it go to the heart or the armor? So I think it's too early to really say if it's too low or not. Clearly it's low. But if every team had like 1 or 2 of these debilitation cards, and if this is where the game is going, we're introducing debilitation cards, then I might argue that debilitations could really be, you know, if they start to become more and more common in the modern format, remember, it won't be in the wild. Well, yes, it will, but it'll be more felt in the modern because it's in that smaller pool of cards. I don't think we need to think about it that way. And I used to say this about board games. I play Monopoly, and everyone plays Monopoly different. Some people put money in the middle of the board, and if you land on go, you get extra money or something like that, or free parking, you get extra money, something like that. And those are house rules. So in my opinion, as long as everybody follows the same rules, there's no advantage or disadvantage. And if we know that certain cards are rolled out of modern and into wild, and that modern has the 2 recent here, I can't talk right now, sweetie. No, not right now, thank you very much. Sorry guys, just talking to my daughter who knows I'm busy but wants to come ask a question anyways. Okay, so yeah, I think it depends. And if cards are rolling out of the modern, then that is just what the modern is. And now it has this, and it didn't maybe used to. It has these overpowered damage dealers, whereas it didn't used to. And you would say, some might say, well, I have to have it, and it's unfair that for those who get it. Well, I mean, that's the exciting part about Soulbound Rewards. Don't you want to play it to get them? And then people will say, well, what if I don't get them, and yet I want them? Well, again, we know that some of them are going to be unlockable, and there's some kind of thoughts around how that might be possible. I know People's Guild was proposing that would be unlockable right away at a really significant cost. Cards like this might point to a real justification for that. I want to carry forward Arachne Weaver. We'll try and spend maybe 10 more minutes on this. Arachne Weaver. 2 magic, 2 speed, 7 hit points. It's a big amount of hit points for 5 mana. I like the art. This one's a bit more playful. Like, yes, it's well drawn. It's beautifully shadowed. But as earlier I pointed to that the old, I looked at the alpha, and there's that spider, the haunted spider. There it is, the haunted spider. We've come a long way from this little guy over here, this cutie, versus this guy. So it's, you know, and it's just got that greater detail, but it's still not, it's not terrifying. It's got a bit of a comic book, you know, it could be like a kid's cartoon, and he'd be the bad guy. And that, I like that better than some of the, you know, gruesome imagery that might be available in other games. In my opinion, it's better. Anyways, 5 mana, 7 hit points, 2 magic, 2 speed. We've got Scavenge, which could get crazy when you start at 7. We got Poison, which is always powerful. Poison's so consistent with the Death team. A lot of Poisoners on that team or available to that team. And then this is the heal that we talked about. Does it heal everyone? Corrupted each round, restore one third of max health to all allied units. Okay. Rounded down. Each time a unit is healed, its max health is reduced by 1. So that to me feels like a pretty cool ability. That one to me, like I said, feels more impactful than Mimic. Mimic feels, I don't know, I can't picture how this would be so powerful. This feels to me like a underwhelming ability. We'll see. But Corrupted Healing seems legit. So does Execute, maybe Windbreak as well. Yes, you got the downside with Corrupted Healing, but again, the player is going to make that, he's going to weigh that pro versus con. If you are getting 1/3 of your heals restored, 1/3, if for 7 hit points, you know, a two hit point heal for this card and every other card on your team, assuming they all have 7 or 8 hit points, 6, 7 or 8 hit points. And that seems like a big deal to me. Yes, you're crippling it, but with a team like that, you would be aiming at, you wouldn't want to play a game, you wouldn't want to rely on Corrupted Healing for a 20+ round match. That's not your strategy. You build a team that is going to slam into the opponent and defeat them in the first 2 or 3 rounds. So you're aiming at a lot of damage. You're aiming at multiple attacks. You're looking for abilities like Poison or Affliction. You're not looking for Triage. You're not looking for, you know, self-resurrects even. You're looking for things where it's like, we're in and we're out. And so I would say Corrupted Healing could be very powerful, especially from a 5-mana monster, and especially where it itself is going to benefit because it's not like a little 1 or 2 hit point monster. This feels good to me. This feels quite very strong. I like it. Olivia the Brook, of the Brook. So you got Opportunity, because that brain one, which is the Mimic. This card looks like it would mimic it, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Like if you were to look at this card and imagine what this card might do, it's got like a playful little, you know, eyebrow raise. It's like it's sizing you up. I get the feeling that Mimic really, like, it's almost like it was designed in conjunction with this art, or maybe this artist. Maybe Olivia the Brook, this is a guess, was drawn by a certain artist who thought of the idea of Mimic, and it's supposed to reflect the artists themselves. I don't know. I'm guessing totally. But it just, the way it looks, I just feel like that is a Mimic person. And of course, Reflection Shield. Reflection Shield is always awesome. Super powerful. I like the double the two different strikes for the Opportunity. This card looks interesting to me regardless of the Mimic. So I would play this for 6 mana without the Mimic. It's got enough hit points. That 1 armor is meaningful. Yeah, I like this card without the Mimic. And then, you know, maybe the Mimic ends up helping you. At the beginning of round 2, each of the following rounds, gain a random ability from the enemy. See, hang on a second. You gain a random ability, but do you lose the prior ability? There's a 25% chance to gain a random ability from an attacker when hit, so you can gain another random ability when you're struck. This spell removes 1 mimicked ability in order they were gained. Debilitations, targeting abilities, ambush, weapons, training, flank, reach, charge, and taunt cannot be mimicked. Okay. Weapon training cannot be mimicked. Flank cannot be... I guess those would be irrelevant almost. Maybe not. Ambush would be irrelevant because it's round 2. I guess what this is telling me, the sentence is saying debilitations not being mimicable is really important. But then the rest of this is telling me we're not going to give you any stupid abilities that don't mean anything to you, right? We're not going to give you ambush because the ambush phase is over. We're not going to give you weapons training because you've already built your team in such a way where they wouldn't need to be weapons trained. You're not going to give you flank because you're not built in a way where this card's going to go to the first spot and allow some flanker to attack in a second. We're not going to give you reach because it doesn't make too much sense. You might get lucky and that would make sense, but a lot of these abilities end up feeling like they wouldn't be useful to somebody who was mimicking. And that's, I think, the way they're trying to make Mimic stronger. Maybe this is an indication they've already felt in playtesting that this is not the most strong ability. And again, the randomness feels, I don't know. Is that going to be good? It might get good if the game goes 8 rounds and you get 16 new abilities, right? Because you get one at the start of the round, beginning of the round. at the beginning of round 2 and each following round. So every round after, you get a new random ability. You might get all the abilities, and that could be pretty interesting. Last Stand, you know, Shield, Void Armor. Suddenly you get to be this crazy powerhouse, and then Mimic would be wild. So as I see an example of what Mimic could be, I could begin to think through how it might actually be powerful. If you could bury this in such a way where the Mimic allows it to acquire 3, 4, 5 new abilities before the game starts getting towards its end, that might be really cool. This is a minimal amount of damage, and so I don't know how you would. Yeah, I guess I might leave it there. You're not going to know what you're able to steal, but the longer you're allowed to live, and that's part of you planning your team well, the longer and more likely Mimic will be powerful. So that's interesting. So I like that card as well. I don't know how to rank these. They're so different, like a magic versus a crazy one-shot, like self-harming archer versus like a main tank. But Warborn Chieftain to me feels like the one card I really feel I need. It feels like an absolute main tank and a very strong card by itself, maybe a carry. And some of these others too might be also, like Kazi Conjurer. I could see a place for that. The full heal could be crazy, something like that. Oh, and it's got Scavenge too. I forgot about that. The Arachne Weaver has that Scavenge, so in conjunction with that heal. You know, these are great, really good cards. Really good. Drybone Megalodon to me is the worst so far, though. I'm going to quick check in with the chat, and we gotta move faster. Okay. Hank says, I think with the Splinterlands lore, we can expect a comic book series. I bet they've talked about that in the past. So Bananas was talking about the 2-mana card being Bananas, and then Nicola said it'll be nerfed. It may be. They did talk about these cards. They talked about the probability of nerfs coming after the community saw them, and they spoke explicitly about the idea that they would really, really intend not to nerf. Who said that? Somebody said that. When we give them to you, we want you to be able to reveal what actually the card is. We're gonna. So I think they're at least gonna try to avoid a nerf. But if the community is blowing up because they think Kazi Conjurer is gonna ruin the game, the team always hears us. They always have, and they always will. Anx is what a beast. Eli says the meta for a smaller mana matches could see shakeup with Kazi. I agree. People's Guild, this guy's a low mana must have. Yep, he dies on his own in round 2 or 3. Unless you did a sustain of some nature. And again, we don't know if shield, you could apply a shield maybe, and that might change something. You could apply armor, that might change something. You could apply triage, that might change something. So yeah, it depends on the fullness of your play. Rodolfo with the Equalizer rule set and triage monster, this could be insane. Absolutely. Maybe all will be nerfed. We'll see, says Nikolai. This death card might just be my favorite. That I think you're talking about Arachne Weaver, but you love the Death Splinter. That's your thing, and you're right. They're awesome. The Death Splinter's awesome, and it does. The Arachne Weaver is awesome. This is a crazy good card, especially with the Scavenge, because we see Dr. Blight, which has 4 hit points, get up to 10 or 12 by the end of a match. And if this thing has 7 to begin with and a self-heal, yes, it cripples itself, but the Scavenge probably brings in 5 or 6 new hit points. And so the cripple that comes out of your corrupted heal is not necessarily as impactful as it might have first seemed. A couple more comments from the chat before we move on to Thenelornian Blade. Rift Summoner says Mimic is strong in the late game because you just keep stacking the abilities. Eventually it could become unkillable if it gets immune, void, shield, tank, heal. Yeah, you're right. Stock Chucky, yep. Brian Carolyn, wonder if we should have 2 levels of unlocking, one where you can have unrestricted costing more. Let me read this again. Wonder if we should have 2 levels of unlocking, one where you can have unrestricted costing more, unrestricted costing more, one where you you can only rent and delegate to your own land, but are soulbound otherwise. They talked about that in previous iterations or planning phases, and I don't think that's going to happen. It's probably pretty sophisticated and complicated to start to create these new tiers of unlock. And what's more, I think, there's a lot of opinions about how much DEC it's going to cost to unlock the old soulbounds, which are soon going to be unlocked. But frankly, guys, like we don't want a crazy new flood of legendaries, epics, rares, and soulbound or commons. I know it seems like, hey, I earned them. Bananas, I know you feel strongly about this. You earn them and you're not going to unlock them. I earned them, I own them, and now you're going to charge me for them. This is what people think. It's like, I'm not willing to do that. And I get it. And the cool thing is you can just keep using it, right? You still have access to it. But the idea that we would unlock them for free definitely has drawbacks, and not everybody wants to admit that. We want to act as if it would just be fine, but we know we have to know in honesty it wouldn't. It would harm the card supply in that it would be this huge new flood, this huge new glut of choices to buy from. There's only so much money in the space, and it would be chasing after even more new assets, and that's going to spread out the valuations, which is going to harm your overall collection price. And maybe that doesn't bother you because you're willing to stick around for 5 or 10 years. It wouldn't necessarily bother me if my card prices went down because it's paper value, and I'm not here for 5 weeks. I'm here for 5-10 years, but it matters if we just start unlocking cards for free. And so it makes sense to me that we have a high DEC rate to unlock. And I don't agree with Brian either that we should maybe have multiple tiers of how we unlock them. Let's get back to it. Supreme Victory, good to see you. It's all good, Brian. Thanks for the drop of the comment. Let's carry on with Thanalorian Blade. Thanalorian Blade here. What's your deal? Okay, so 4 damage, 3 speed, 1 hit point, 6. So decently resilient. You got the opportunity, so you can bury it in the back lines. You got that double strike or whatever that's called, that execute, which is a cool name, by the way, execute. And this card does, again, very cool, consistent artwork. This card looks like it would have an execute. Like, she looks fierce. She's striking with this gigantic swing, but she has this like dagger or whatever here, so she's ready to follow up. Good planning, Nate and team. The card art fits the abilities you've given to it. In past, with some of the gladiators, we saw like he's holding a bow and yet he's got melee damage or something like that. So big level up. Well done. Good job, guys. So opportunity, you got like 4 damage is very significant, and yet not going to proc a force field. And 3 speed is, slow but not too slow. The resiliency is there. It feels like it could fit in the 4th, 5th, 6th spot and you'd be okay. The trample is huge, especially with opportunity. And what's that one called again? That ability is the one where it supports the neighboring units, right? It like lets the neighboring unit take less damage. Rift Summoner Execute is only good with cards that have super high damage like 6+ or have Bloodlust. If the card has Double Strike, then it's good, but without those things, it's not a good ability compared to others. Because you're saying if the target has 2 or less health after successful attacks, perform another attack against the same unit. You're making it seem like that would make it proc a lot more often. Like if it had more damage, like 6 damage or more, it would have a greater likelihood of driving it to that low critical health level. But I don't necessarily agree. Like 4 damage can drive somebody to a critical health level. Now, if there's no armor standing in the way, because it doesn't have piercing, plus it's got trample, by the way, you could absolutely imagine this is an opportunity card. Remember, it's going to strike your weakest monster, not your most strong monster. It's going to strike your weakest monster, and it might almost kill it, strike it again, that's a double strike, then kill it, trample the next monster who will be adjacent to that, presumably another backline vulnerable monster. This could be crazy. This could be really crazy. And for 6 mana, a strong opportunity monster is always good. 6 mana is not high for what essentially could, like, this is not a small little 2-3 mana melee monster. Sometimes we see 3 hit points or 4 hit points on something with this kind of kit. Not this kind of kit, because we've never seen execution. But with the fullness of what I'm seeing here, this feels pretty darn strong. Like this makes me think about gladiators. Now it doesn't have bloodlust. I mean, I want to play it. It looks like it'll change my battle. I really like how I'm imagining the consistency or the connection between opportunity, execute, and trample. And then, by the way, because of opportunity, sticking it in the 5th spot or the 6th spot, or probably the 5th spot, in conjunction with this ability, which the name escapes me. Remember, that's like a support capacity. So I like it a lot. I'm not mentally tracking where each of these would go in sort of a ranking with me, but Olivia the Brook could be really powerful if you build the right team where it gets that mimic 3, 4, 5, 6 times, unless one dispel just erases it. Warborn Chieftain feels like a main tank that everybody's going to want. Blackmoor Jinx is definitely the sort of archer that you're going to love to throw in there and get that extra little bit of damage for 1 mana. Kazi Conjurer for 2 is crazy, assuming there's ways to mitigate that incendiary. Arachne Weaver, excellent, but you're going to want to build around. This is going to change how you engage with the game, so that's not necessarily a positive. It's a bit of a drawback maybe. And Thenelorian Blade, I like this card a lot. I think it's very powerful. Right now we've looked at 3, in my opinion, amazing Earth Splinter cards. This is our first neutral. Ujarak Elder, 3 mana, not so high. Neutral, always great to see. You love to have some good options in there. 1 magic, 3 speed, 3 hit points, vulnerable. This is going to be targeted by a card like Thenelorian Blade, and it's going to die, and it's going to proc trample, and right. But then you got camo over here, so my bad, I'm wrong about that. The camo is going to keep you in that background where nobody sees you. The Divine Shield is going to protect you from some of those blast damages that sometimes kill camo monsters. The Strengthen is always what a powerful ability, man. Strengthen is so awesome, and so is Swiftness. This is a card I like a lot. And this is a common. That's interesting. I like this card a lot. Now, it's not doing much damage, but the Strengthen in conjunction with the Divine Shield, and again with the camo, you're going to quietly kick out damage and support the team in some meaningful ways. I like that card. Is it as important as some of those other cards? No. Is it going to be a serious help to your team? Yeah, it definitely will, especially for 3 mana. Strengthen is big. It's really big. And neutral, right? If you're adding 1 more hit point to a death team that's getting corrupted healing, you're going to like that. That might proc more hit point heals per team, and it'll at least fight off those cripples that are going to be coming as a result of that corrupted healing. Chaos Battle Mage, super cool. I love the art. I love the shadows. I love this card. I love the art big time. Legendary, 8 mana, 3 archery, 4 speed, 1k. Feels like a off tank. You got the self-res. You got the, oh wow, self-res with the, what's that called again? Redemption. And the Divine Shield and the self-res. That's a cool combo. Divine Shield with the self-res is a great combo. And I talked about the new, is it Tofu? One of the summoners, yeah, Tofu gives you can apply Divine Shields. And I said Divine Shield in conjunction with Resurrects and Self-Resurrects is a very powerful thing. This is a neutral card that will slip into a lot of different teams, and it'll give you that utility. It's doing a good amount of damage with a good amount of base stats, but then when you Self-Resurrect, you can get 1 more hit point, armor, and 1 more hit point. You're gonna nix any poison that might have been on there before you died. Probably nix any burning that might have been on there before you died. You're gonna drop that redemption, and then you're gonna res, and you're gonna be at least 1, probably 2, 3 hits before you go down again, and then you're gonna redeem again. I like that card a lot. Now, it's not as good again as some of the magic or melee monsters we looked at in the last few minutes here, because archery can't fire from the first unless you're using the green splinter, which you could because it's neutral. But nevertheless, I like this card a lot. Probably I like it in higher mana matches. Probably I like it in Arrows Out or whatever it's called, where you have to fire archery. But I could see a lot of play and utility for something like this. And then you can give taunt to a card like this as well, by the way, remember. Give taunt to this where the redemption, right? Which card gives taunt? Which new, is it, one of the summoners gives taunt now. Is it not out yet? That's my next question. Yeah, I don't think it's out yet. No. Yeah, there it is with the draft. So you could give a taunt. Oh, but the taunt with the redemption comes with the redemption. So maybe you wouldn't want to do that. Nevertheless, I like this card a lot. And finally, Surly Drunk. 1 mana again for an opportunity monster that does 2 damage. How can you complain about that? These are the sort of cards, like, if this card didn't have an opportunity, you'd still play it. You'd still find situations to play the Surly Drunk. If it didn't have an opportunity, if it had any other ability, 1 swiftness, 1, you know, thorns, 1, like, you'd play this without without opportunity. And so yes, for 1 mana, this is a crazy extra. And then there are certain scenarios where Tarsa, or I forget the other, that dwarf from the fire team that gives Enrage. There's ways this could get real serious. For 1 mana? Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. We're going to want that. And then Frigid Wolf, 1 mana, 2 melee, 3 speed. This one has the charge, which means, again, it'll fire from a more secure rear position. These cards are awesome. I don't love this artwork as much. It looks, the wolf looks cool, but there's less motion happening. The eyes are awesome. The fierce growl looks amazing. The shadow looks, but somehow the legs just look less. There's less motion in this card. So this is maybe from an artistic standpoint, I'm less in love with that card. And the Surly Drunk, I like this one. It's got a lot going on. No, I like this one. I was going to say something bad about this one. No, but I like it. It's got character. This feels, it's a wolf. You know what I mean? So from an art standpoint, I might be critical of Frigid Wolf, and possibly I'm critical of Ujurak Elder. Otherwise, I love the new art style. Love it. And the new abilities look amazing to me. And there was one more I didn't touch yet. Galactus or Galacus. Looks like an airbender out of Avatar, The Last Airbender. Or the fire, got the fire red. You got the life splinter, 4 mana. This is the one Jangles was talking about earlier in the chat. Shield, taunt, 4 mana. Let's go, right? And in the context of archery only, minor leagues, right? The shield is huge. The headwinds is huge. When it's 4 mana or less, there's not a lot of 5 mana bombs. Now, there's a couple, I guess, because of, for instance, Kazi Conjurer that we showed earlier. But you could imagine this shield in conjunction with the headwinds in a low mana match really actually proving quite resilient. Plus he's got 5 hit points, make it 6. Shield and the taunt. To me, that's pretty serious. That's going to work. And again, with this being a white team means General Sloan makes 2 go to 3. That's a serious card. That's a very serious card. I don't know which I like the most, or which one I would describe as being the must-have of this set. But you guys didn't seem to like the Thanalornian Blade the same way as I did. So in terms of drawing distinctions between what I'm feeling, maybe you guys think, and what I think, this card feels like one that I would consider a standout. Is it the best of the bunch? Probably not. Kazi Conjurer is kind of crazy, and you would probably use this in a conjunction, in a sort of build where you are trying to win in turn 1, or where, like somebody in the chat said, where Equalizer is in effect, so the Incendiary is not that much of a big deal. And in the context of a low mana match, you're getting a lot of damage for 2 mana. So cards like that, Arachne Weaver is high on my list because of the interesting new functionality of the Corrupted Healing. But I think Olivia the Brook with the Mimic and what that could be if you build your team correctly by the end of the match. Warborn Chieftain and how it's built to sort of last and sustain, and how you could quickly augment it with improving its evasiveness and in conjunction with phase, or improving its hit points and then benefiting from the shield. I like that card a lot. So I'm saying War Chieftain's in my top 5. Blackmoor Jinx, because the 1 mana for the 2 archery really fits with the green Splinter. Olivia the Brooks in the top 5. Thanalorian Blades in the top 5. And I don't know, probably Gallicus, because I really think a lot of those mini matches, those 4 or less, that's going to really benefit from the headwinds, the strengthen, the shield, and the taunt. I think those are my 5, but it's not to say that I don't love the others. The only one I really truly don't know that I even care about is Drybone Megalodon, because of reasons I already explained. And I actually have run out of time. I should have known we would go longer than I wanted with respect to this conversation. Yeah, look out, that's that one Supreme Victory, you're right. That one on Thanalorian Blade, that's Lookout. But let's quickly read some chat, and then I'm going to wrap. Guys, thanks. And while I'm hitting the chat, thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you for hanging out. Appreciate all of you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Yeah, Jangles, appreciate you too, pal. Guys, you're amazing. So yeah, midnight tonight, so 3 hours from now, I'm going to release a video on my thoughts with respect to those disabilities and those abilities. And we'll talk about those debilitations and those abilities. And so if you want to check that out, stick around tonight, come back tomorrow, and have an amazing day, guys. Thanks for, and next week, next Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to do a live for my members only. If you want more Splinterlands live content, check out my YouTube page and subscribe at whatever level you see fit. And then you can support the channel, support the content I'm creating, and have members only content.